Hi folks, in this video we're going to look at past simple versus present perfect. Let's start with a timeline. Alright, and we're going to look at all the tenses and put them in a timeline and see how they kind of differ from each other. So let's start with present simple, which is a sentence like I walk to school every day. And I walk to school, or I walk to school every day. And what do we know about present simple? Well, I always put it around the present, because it's not really related to one particular moment in time, and it can be something and can be used with things that are scheduled or things that happened slightly in the past, right? If something is scheduled, it probably also happened in the past. And your opinion, for example, that's also something that's used when talking about things, and then you use the present simple. So that shows that present simple is not something that's really limited to a particular moment in time, but can be kind of around the present. In comparison, the present continuous is something else, because the present continuous is something that really happens at a particular moment in time, right? So if I would say I am speaking now, the now shows that it's going on right now, right? And that is really a particular moment in time. Now, past simple, which is the past equivalent of present simple, is also something that happened at a particular moment in time in the past, right? We usually have some sort of expression of finished time. In Dutch, we would call that a tijdsbepaling. That really indicates that something is over and it only happened at one moment or for a longer moment in time. When we compare this to past continuous, we see that past continuous usually went on a bit longer than past simple, and past continuous usually also appears together with past simple. You probably know a sentence like while I was speaking, someone came in, right? The while I was speaking was a bit longer, and you were kind of interrupted by the person who came in. Present perfect is something that started in the past and still influences the present. And we're going to look at, of course, present perfect and past simple for the rest of this video. And finally, we have past perfect, which is used when something happened before something else in the past. So one of the sentences which illustrates this could be something like, he had seen the video, but wasn't aware of its relevance, right? So had seen the video, that happened before we talked about this person being aware of the relevance, right? Now, as I said, we're going to focus on two of them, present perfect and past simple, and we're going to see how these two differ from each other. So let's have a look at these two sentences. We watched Manchester United versus Everton yesterday, and we have I've never seen the Hunger Games. Now the question is, which tenses are used and what's the difference? Well, we know that in the first sentence we use past simple, and in the second sentence we use present perfect. But what's the difference between these two sentences? Well, one thing we see is that if we look at sentence number 1, we see that we have something like yesterday, right? And this is, of course, one of these expressions of finished time. And this really indicates that something is over. And it happened completely in the past. Now, for present perfect, we don't have these kind of words, right? We don't have these expressions of finished time that fit in the sentence. So if we look at I've never seen the Hunger Games, we talk about a very long period in time. And we know that because of never. So we talk about basically the moment I was born until now, and I haven't seen the Hunger Games in any of those, in between those times, right? Between when I was born and now. And because we're not talking about this particular moment, but a very long period, and basically something up till now, we use the present perfect. So let's start with past simple. Past simple is used when something happened completely in the past and sometimes has these expressions of finished time. So here are some sentences. The students lived in Groningen when they were young. The teacher ate all the cake this morning. and although they lived far away, they maintained a healthy relationship. And Manchester United won yesterday's match. So we have expressions of finished times in most of these sentences. When they were young, that's an expression of finished time, because we know that's something that happened, in the past. The teacher ate all the cake this morning. This morning is a good example of an expression of finished time. And Manchester United won yesterday's match. Yesterday's match, yesterday again illustrates in the past. So these are expressions of finished time. Now the verbs we use with past simple can either be regular or irregular, right? And regular verbs are usually formed with the verb and ed. So if we look at the verbs in the example sentences, we see that to live is regular. Now we don't get double E, and that makes sense, so we have lived. To eat is irregular. To maintain is regular. And to win is irregular. Now there's no way to know which verbs are regular and which are irregular. You just need to know all the irregular verbs. And there's probably a list somewhere in your book or somewhere online which you can use and which you can study. Now we can distinguish three types of sentences: affirmative sentences, questions, and negations. An example of an affirmative sentence in the past simple is I walked to school yesterday. Right, that's one of these sentences I used at the beginning. That's an affirmative sentence. Questions in the past simple are a bit different. Because the question is, did I walk to school yesterday? And what do we see? Well, we get did, and did indicates the past tense in this case. But because did does this, the verb walk doesn't do it. Right? So we don't have to say, did I walked? Because then we'd have past simple and past tense twice. But did shows us that it's past simple, so walk doesn't have to do it. This means that walk just remains the infinitive form of the verb. Now for the negation, the same thing happens, but then with didn't. So didn't indicates past tense and walk doesn't. Now here are all the different forms we have for all the three, right? So for affirmative sentences, questions, and negations. We see I walked to school yesterday, you walked, he walked, we walked, you walked, and they walked. Here are the questions, and here are the negations. Now what's really something that stands out? Well, we know from present simple that we used to have he, she, it gets extra s. But we see in these sentences, in the past simple, that he, she, and it doesn't get extra s, right? So the subject-verb agreement doesn't appear when we talk about past simple. Then all the verbs remain the same. So we don't get extra s for he, neither in the affirmative form, the question, nor the negation. And again, did and didn't indicate past tense, and the main verb doesn't. So again, for the questions and the negations, we don't get extra ed after the infinitive, in this case, walk. So just to summarize, past simple is used when something happened completely in the past and sometimes has some sort of expression of finished time. We know for the affirmative sentence we get verb plus ed or the irregular form. For the question you get did plus the infinitive, and the negation is did or did not. Didn't or did not plus infinitive. So we see she went to Los Angeles on holiday last year. Did she go to Los Angeles on holiday last year? And she didn't go to Los Angeles on holiday last year. So why would we make our life difficult with present perfect when there is something like past simple? Because past simple refers to something that is completely in the past, and that's going to make the difference. Let's have a look at two sentences, and that will illustrate this example. So sentence number 4, I learned French in secondary school, but I can't remember anything. And sentence number 5, my sister has learned French, so she can work in France. Now if we would put these sentences on a timeline, we would see that sentence 4 appears completely in the past. We would put it completely in past. If you have sentence 5, we will put it with some sort of beginning in the past and some sort of influence in the present. So what does this mean? I learned French when I was in secondary school is completely in the past, right? And we know that because we have in secondary school, and that's over. And since I don't speak French anymore, I can't remember anything, there's no influence in the present with this learning of French. Now in sentence 5, it's different. Because my sister has learned French, so she can work in France, that literally influences the present, right? She still speaks French. So present perfect is used when something happened in the past and still influences the present, or with a particular set of adverbs. And these adverbs are always, ever, never, just, yet, since, for, already, before, lately, until, and how long. If we look at these examples, we see that sentence 1 is, the teacher has spoken to us for several minutes. We have one of these adverbs, for. I've just seen it drive by us, just. And they have never seen this film because they weren't allowed. Never. And these adverbs indicate that we have to use present perfect. Present perfect verbs consist of to have plus past participle. And in Dutch we would call the past participle the voltooid deelwoord. And we get these with a regular verb plus ed or an irregular verb. So again, the affirmative form of present perfect is I have already spoken to him. A question in the present perfect is have I already spoken to him? And the negation is I haven't spoken to him. Here are all the different forms, again in affirmative, question and negation. Now there's something that really stands out in this table, because we see that we do get some sort of subject-verb agreement, right? We have has, and has, or hasn't, for the he, she, it form, right? So even though we don't get this for past simple, we do get it when we talk about present perfect, right? So we must have subject-verb agreement for the he, she and it. And this means he, she, it has or hasn't. So let's summarize. Present perfect is used when something started in the past or happened in the past and still influences the present, or with words like always, ever, never, just, yet, since, for, already, before, and until, and how long. And in all of the cases we have, has, plus past participle. And of course for the negation you would have, you have, haven't, or hasn't, plus past participle. Here are some examples. She's just gone to break up with him. Has she just gone to break up with him? And she hasn't just gone to break up with him. So adverbs like always, ever, never, just, yet, since, for, already and before indicate present perfect. Finished time words like, or expressions of finished time, like yesterday, this morning, earlier, last week, etc. indicate past simple. So just to summarize what we talked about in this video. We learned that past simple is completely in the past. It's finished. And usually appears or could appear with words like yesterday, this morning, so-called finished time words. And past simple is usually used when there's no consequence for the present. Present perfect is used when something started in the past but there are consequences in the present. And can be used with words like always, ever, never, just, yet, since, for, already and before. So these are the main differences between past simple and present perfect.